Welcome back to another reading and correcting with me, Kindar, the Tiger Writes, and Ty, the Tiger Supervisor. These are where I read a chapter from one of my stories and correct it as I go. If you want to listen to these live, it's every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time on Twitch. And if you are looking to support me, that is on my Patreon. Today we are doing chapter 90 of Breaking Step. Tibs bypassed the guard's shield, planted the sword in its chest, and pulled up, cutting it and making it lose the last of the essence, animating it. It crumbled as it fell back. Then all that was left behind were a handful of silver coins. Is it me? Miss said. And that would be asked. Mez asked, flaming arrow in his bow, searching for more target. Or have the numbers of guards we keep running into increased? He's making up for not using magic, Tip said, picking up the coins. Or, Dawn said, the city's authority have realized criminals are roaming the streets and are looking to stamp that down. He looked up from the cut in his arm at the staring archer. It's just a thought. And were the criminals in those thoughts? Mez asked unhappily. What would you call a gang going around breaking into every house and stealing anything of value? Who's paying the protection money? Jekyll asked. That's not how it works, Mez replied. The fighter stared at him. How else do they keep the city from devolving into chaos? Laws, Mez replied, raising a finger and sounding like he didn't understand why he had to explain it. Order, enforcement, and the sentencing of those who don't obey them. So, tyranny, Jekyll said flatly. No, a fair system with fair laws and corresponding punishment to motivate people not to engage in criminal activities. Jekyll snorted. Tibs, where do you stand on city order versus chaos? Dunn asked. He shrugged. My street was chaos run by criminals. I never went outside of it to know what the rest of the city was like. Forget other cities, Miss said in exasperation. Look at Craggle Rock. The laws are, we're slave to the guild. Jekyll cut him off. Sent in the dungeon to either die or become stronger so they can use us against whatever gets in their way. I think you're proving my point. Okay, that's fair, the archer admitted. But the folk living there, they don't. The guards don't bother stopping thief from breaking into their house, Jekyll stated. But that's just so they can train, Miss said. They don't take anything because I don't let them, Tip said. And Irdian wants the guards to catch us. We're just better than they are. Which proves my point even more, Jekyll beamed. And remember, the nobles have their own guards against city order. That doesn't speak to a fine, Mez snapped. You made your point. There's nothing that can be done. The world's a breath away from falling into never-ending chaos. That isn't what Jekyll is saying, Dawn said in a conciliatory tone. It kinda is, the fighter objected. The world isn't about to fall into chaos, Dawn insisted, glaring at the fighter. But that isn't because criminals get stamped out. Criminals exist within an ecosystem along the rest of society. By their nature, the strongest one get challenged and they're either defeated, killed, Jekyll said. Those weaker or are replaced, increasing the chaos and leading to more people challenging them, keeping that chaos mostly contained. Even when they are able to keep everyone in their place, it's still a disorganized system which can easily fall right back into contained chaos. It leads to a system that isn't particularly effective at disrupting the rest of a city. Jekyll's family, how, who, wait, who has who has had, Jekyll interrupted it, had a firm hold on the criminal element, let them be more efficient in affecting the city, but even they were careful not to upset the balance so much that, fine, Mez snapped and walked off a few paces. Dawn, Jekyll asked in the stretching silence, where does a city like this keep its coffers? The bank, the sorcerer replied dismissively. No, the city coffers. Dawn pulled his attention from the sulking archer. The banks should hold most of the city's money. The rest, he considered, probably spread throughout the offices, with most of the city hall, I guess. Shouldn't we try to find the boss room instead? Tibbs asked. There's going to be more loot there. Yes, but you and Don have been going on about how the dungeon is treating this floor like a real city. I figure it's going to put the boss in the most important building, and what's more important to a city than its coffers? That's not an unreasonable assumption, Dawes said, sounding surprised. I'm going to ignore the disbelief and say thanks, Jekyll replied, grinning. So where is it? I don't know, the sorcerer replied. Don't ask me, Tibbs said as Jekyll looked at him. Unless it's a hall in a city, I don't know what a city hall is. Wouldn't that be at the end of the main road? Mez said from where he stood, sounding annoyed at contributing to the conversation. That's only true when the city is young. When the city's young, that's... When the city's young, Don replied, like how before Marketplace became a thing, we could go from the guild building to the dungeon on one road. But Marketplace broke that, and that's become more pronounced. That becomes more pronounced as cities as a city as a city grows. Which road is the main one will change as more important buildings are established. You read too much, Maz grumbled. And that's even more true when you remember this is a city created by a dungeon. It might know what a city hall it might know City Hall is a thing from listening to runners, but I doubt where that building is in a city would come up in those conversations. So what you're saying, Jekyll said dejectedly, is that we're stuck continuing to wander around just hoping we'll find it. Hoping we will recognize the building as such, Don corrected. It could be a copy of the permit office or something else. Each city has its own design for any of its building. This won't be any different. What about the clues the dungeon would leave? Tibbs asked. That only leads to the city hall if that's the boss room. If they're all different, how did you know it was the permit office, the permit building? Don shrugged. The architecture matched drawings of multiple such buildings I came across when I read a treatise on city architecture. There's a level of efficiency where similar building methods have to be used, so it leads to similar looking building. So the city hall will be just like every other one, Jekyll said, grinning. Maybe not, Don replied. And even if it does, that doesn't help work out where it is, so we'll have to wonder. What do you believe such a structure might be used to hide? Kumdar asked. Hide? The sorcerer frowned. City halls aren't really about hiding things. It's where those wishing to do business in and with the city go to get those rights. Land leases and purchases. There might deal with some of the building rights, but those are but most of those are handled by a but most of those are handled by permit offices. So backroom deals will be hidden there. Jekyll said, bribing an official to get a piece of land that was slotted for a competitor. My dad did plenty of businesses directly with the city, and the people handling his money knew where it came from. So, also heard about a city, he said, as if he had a revelation, that outlawed sorcerers, but remained the place to go to, to go for anything magical. Sebastian must have liked it there. Tib said, I think he's who I heard it from. Jekyll considered something. Since you said we can only find it by coming across it, how about we get moving? I may, Kamdar's eyes were closed, have an idea where to start. I thought there were too many secrets here for you to use them, Mez said. That is indeed the case, the cleric said, replied. Looking to his left. But within a focus or with secrets that big, it is possible to sense their flavor Or if I have an idea of the secret I am searching for, I can seek to pierce the others in its favor. What you spoke of was irritably vague, but in an attempt to discern them, I smelled something reminiscent of not belonging, and with a flavor of those hiding that they are breaking the rules. I think he smelled you, Kenny whispered. How can he sense anything? The them demanded. Didn't you cloak this floor as I told you? Tibs missed what Jekyll said, trying not to react to how loud they sounded. But the fighter was rubbing his hands eagerly, so they were moving. You told me to arrange it so he couldn't sense anything, Stowe replied sharply, and I told you how much it took just to get that arrangement you had me use. How much it took? You had me use to work. Here's what it took to get that arrangement you wanted me to use to work. Yeah, I don't like it. And I told you how much it took to get that arrangement you forced me to use. And I told you how much it took to get that arrangement you forced me to use to work. If it isn't keeping the rest of his team from sensing through that, it's on you. And before you bring it up, no, I couldn't do the whole floor. I don't think there's enough essence anywhere for something this complex on that scale. It's just around him, but large enough he can't push through. Was Tibs telling him that if he focused hard enough, Tibs could sense beyond this reduced range? The building was well away from the main road, but it was at the end of a road which was large enough it might have been important at one time. And the road ended at its door instead of early enough to have a yard. Even the permit office had a distance between the road bifurcating around it and the other doors. The building The building was larger than the library, which made it the largest he'd seen yet. It had 2 floors and stretched left and right far enough Tibbs couldn't make out where it ended. Okay, I am... Because the thing is that they're... What he's describing as ending in the street, they are coming sideways to it. To floor stretch far enough. Took time to reach the doors. Tibbs couldn't make out where. Where the rest ended. All right. The building was larger than the library, which made it the largest he'd seen yet. It had 2 floors and stretched far enough it took time to reach the double doors, and Tibbs couldn't make out where the rest ended. The walls were made of stone in a variety of color, arranged in what felt like random. When they started, the windows were narrow. The windows that lined the outside were narrow, close together, and had light shining through with an occasional shadow blocking it. I told you settling here was a bad idea, Kenny said. You said to pick a place that wasn't obvious, Stowe replied. What's less obvious than some building in a shadowed corner of the city? They'd never have come here if Commodore hadn't smelled some secret. The king's residence is where all the good stuff is hidden. Tibbs looked up in surprise and almost asked if Stowe had said that to help him. Yes, Stowe whispered. That's for you. They're gone to check on something, but don't talk. I have no idea when they'll be back and or how far they can hear. I don't want to be I don't want to be deep in conversation if they manifest back here. You really should get your team to go there instead, Kenny whispered. We set what you'll I'm sensing them, Stoist, and they fell silent. Tibs? Jekyll called again, and he shifted his focus so he wouldn't give away to the them he hadn't been paying attention to his team. Care to make sure the door won't kill us? Tibbs studied the building. It's not studied. Looked at the building as he approached the door, trying to come up with a way to convince Jackal to go elsewhere. But one? But one? Okay, what the? But by telling him. Okay, I think it feels like I deleted an entire phrase here. But he couldn't think of one other than telling him Stow had directed him to a better place. Unless he breathed his worry aside and readied himself. He could accomplish two things here. I'm pretty sure that's test how hard it was to push his sense through the fog and then have them go elsewhere. He pushed it. All right. He pushed his sense, but before it went far, he staggered back, trying to make sense of what's wrong. Jekyll asked, catching him. Is the door trapped? Is the door's trap that hard? There's no trap, he whispered. It's something else. He struggled to find the right word. There's a hole in the building. That wasn't even close. Should I bother asking how he knows about that? The them asked, and Tibbs barely heard Don's question. You don't mean something we can use to get in, do you? How should I know? Stowe replied. You saw just how many element he has. Same as me. You can't expect me to know everything he does. Let me think, Tibbs said, raising a hand to silence the other's question. He needed to hear what they were talking about. I'm surprised you never heard of something like this, Kenny said. Those like you traveled to many dungeons. One of them has to have reported back about another one. About something like him. Something like this. One of them has to have reported something like this. Reported back something like this. No, the dam didn't sound happy. There has been no mention of someone like him, and I didn't come across one of them in all the dungeons I had to discipline. If I had, I'd know how to crush him. That isn't what. This is an aberration, Stone Mountain Crevice. It doesn't represent the runners. You should have destroyed it. You should have destroyed it the instant you understood how dangerous it was. He isn't dangerous, Stowe protested. He's just another runner. A runner who can pull the essence out of your creations and make his way through you without effort. Do you want to give him the time to work out how to manage that and then drain you completely? He wouldn't do that. And what do you think he's thinking about right now? Can't you send something to stop him? He's too clever. If you give him time, he'll... We should go elsewhere, Tibs said, over the rest of the them's comment, because staying silent was inviting trouble. But there's loot here, right? Jekyll asked. He looked at Don. It is the city hall, right? I don't know. It could be. And you said the door isn't trapped, the fighter said, his expression hopeful. But there's the... It's under the building, right? Tibs tried to think of anything that would destroy the hope while getting them away. But the only thing he had would tell them he could hear them. Maybe even that Stowe had talked to him. We need to stay away from that thing, he finally said. No going down, Jekyll promised. Wouldn't that be where they keep their money? As asked. The vaults are always under the buildings in the bard's songs. Jekyll turned to Cumdar. Is the secret under the building? I do not know. Unlike the other secrets, this one has become diffuse as we approached, rather than gaining definition. Is it better hidden? Tibs asked, considering if it was something the them was hiding. The cleric closed his eyes. I do not know. I have never encountered such a secret before. Therefore, I am unable to explain why or how it is countering me. He looked at Dawn. I'd help if I could, but what you can do wasn't part of any book I've read. I can say that the secret is indeed here, somewhere within this building, but that is all I am capable of stating. Maybe we shouldn't risk it, Tibs said. There's going to be more loot elsewhere. Are you not curious as to what is hidden here? The cleric asked in dismay. Tibs hesitated. The them had been in the city. Was that what Tibs had felt watching him? They seemed to know some things about how he thought. Did they know how curious he usually was? What if the secret is where that thing is? What if it isn't loot? Maybe what you're sensing is that hole? He shuddered at the idea of getting closer to it. And we're so far from everything. There can't be good loot here. Jekyll placed a hand on his shoulder. Tibs, if Cumdar's secret is close to that, or even if that's where the loot is, we'll turn around and leave. But we're right here. And you're the one who said how crafty the dungeon is. This place has to have great loot, especially because it's far from everything else. He grinned. You'll see. We're going to find something great. I thought he was the stupid one in this group, the them said. This is about loot, again he replied. He's kind of stubborn when loot is involved. Then you are better be well hidden. You are better be as well hidden as you think, Stone Mountain Crevice, because anytime one of their kind has found a dungeon's core, they have destroyed it. And that concludes Chapter 90 of Breaking Step. If you are enjoying this, please leave a like. If you want to know when the next chapter is going to be up, subscribe. Hit the bell. If you want to read the story, as well as the other books in the series, they are up on Royal Road. Actually, I was today. The first book is probably available on Amazon too. And if I think the links are anyway. And if you want to listen to these live, it's every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time on Twitch. The links are in the notes. And with that, I shall wish you a good day.